Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Talking with Heroes talk show program. I am Bob Calvert, founder and host of Talking with Heroes. We've been on the air now a little over 11 years, audio and video programs. Mostly what we're doing now is video programs. People seem to really like watching videos. And those of you who maybe watched the videos we did yesterday with USAA, just incredible. But we're here at a different location right now, and we're with a company called Guide On. And we're going to do a few video episodes with them. But on this one, since we're talking to a military family here, we're going to talk about military families and service to our country. And so I want to introduce Tony Garcia, CIO and co-founder of Guide On. And he's a U.S. Army veteran. And Kristin,
Yep.
Tony's your dad.
Yep.
Okay.
Dad.
Well, great. Why don't you start out, if you don't mind, talk a little bit about yourself and your service to our country. And then as we move on, we'll talk about what it's been like for the family. Okay?
Well, first of all, thank you for having us here today, Bob. And to answer your question, I retired from the military in 1993 after serving 21 and a half years in the military. And I was in during the Cold War, so I'm one of the old Cold Warriors. Spent time in Germany. I was fortunate to have two company commands, a battalion command. I was a general's aide. I also served as an organizational effectiveness staff officer, which has really kind of impacted my career in what I do today. Kristin was born in Indianapolis while I was at Fort Benjamin Harrison. And then my son, Anthony, who is the CEO and founded Guide On, is in Oakland, and he was born in Frankfurt, Germany, at the 97th General Hospital. And he was actually born while they played the national anthem at 6 o'clock in the hospital, which was quite a coincidence. My wife, Linda, who has supported all of us for all these numbers of years, was a childhood sweetheart of mine. So we've been together since we knew each other in high school and married while I was at St. Mary's University. The Army has really propelled our whole family to everything that we're doing today. Guide On is focused on obviously serving the veterans and providing a free resume to any service member, private through general, but with a special focus on our middle skills sergeants who really need, I think, the help that we provide. The other thing that I have to say is that I was fortunate. I did struggle a little bit when I first transitioned out of the military and having people understand what I did and what I could do. But after proving myself, I had a tremendous career with the H-E-B grocery company in San Antonio. I then moved on to Harlan Clark Printing. At both companies, I put in high-performing work teams. And then late in my career, I went out and received my PhD, which is really a big focus of what I do today for Guide On, because what I really studied was the leadership capability of really correlating skills to the civilian careers that soldiers go into. During this time, I've been fortunate to maintain my connections with the military, and once you're in, there's a service capability. Kristin always says, well, I didn't serve, Dad. I was a military brat. But she is now today the lead behavioral scientist for our company. She's picked up everything that I've taught her, but she's also so advanced in so many ways that she's really a member of our Army team. We have civilians in our organization, but we have a tremendous military focus. During the time that I served, my family was a part of the organization, so to speak. And people don't understand how a military family, and especially a spouse, supports a husband. When I commanded the first time in Germany, back in 1974. My wife would come into the company headquarters, and she would bring in all the wives that were supporting their husbands and serving in Germany without any subsistence. She would get them all together. She'd take them down on the streetcar to downtown Frankfurt. She'd show them how to shop. She'd show them how to deal with the German community. She also provided assistance in their own personal lives if they needed help. All of this is something that we take for granted, and quite frankly, as a military officer, a lot of times you think this is part of the life, but it really is a great sacrifice that families make, and I wouldn't be where I am today without my wife and serving and doing all the things behind the scenes that she's done. We're just very fortunate.
Excellent. Now your son is serving right now, right?
Well, my son is a former medevac Black Hawk pilot, served 2 tours in Iraq. He probably commanded the largest medevac unit in wartime after Vietnam, because during many of the times that they operated, he had attached elements out of a number of units. He was the flight platoon leader, which, as you know, is really like a company commander for all the operations. So he both was the flight platoon leader, but he also flew missions. One of his proudest achievements is the fact that he took his unit over twice and never lost a soldier. And they flew over 4,000 missions, and they saved so many lives that he's just so proud of what he did. And I know today, although he misses the military, he knows that he's contributing to supporting the military as they transition by providing these first-class MBA-type resumes for soldiers. And we, as of February, will now have, the term is translated, but as I mentioned to you, we're really correlating skills. There's not a natural crosswalk where you are in one area and you walk across the street and now you're a civilian and everything just translates. There's a correlation, as you well know, in all of your tours overseas. So we're able to really bring out the true skills of soldiers as they transition into the civilian world. And Kristin works with soldiers to help them better understand.
Why don't you start, Kristin, first? Talk about what it was like growing up.
Okay.
Dad in the military.
Well, it's really interesting, and it's funny because I know my dad will say I downplay my service to the country as an Army brat, but I have for my whole life, and even though I'm well into my late 30s at this point, I will tell people first and foremost I'm an Army brat. It's that important to me. I think it has it's taught me about working with people from diverse backgrounds. It's shared with me an ability to understand the value that we have in our country. I think mostly in this day and age, there's a lot of people who don't understand the values and the great things that our country, stands for. And I think it's having that value of knowing the people who are a part of creating the great country that we do have. A lot of sacrifice. I mean, there were times that, and I know this is something of many children when their families are working, but times that my dad would leave, and so my mom was in charge of doing what she needed to do for us. There were also a lot of times we got to travel and do some really great things as well while we lived in Germany. But I think it was always a sense of patriotism that you had in the military as a military brat. I graduated from Fort Sam Houston from Cole High School, and got to graduate with lots of people who had that same understanding. So I was one of those people that when it was time to go to college, I was ready to go somewhere new. and I kind of blame my parents for that. and my husband unfortunately suffers from the travel bug, and my probably more willingness to want to move easily, as opposed to him, who's been born and raised in San Antonio. So there are good and bad things of being raised as a military brat, because of the flexibility that we have. I think then in turn, I really, one of the things I've now noticed in my later life is I'm a sibling to a veteran, and a single soldier. And I know that's a difficult life, for any of the viewers that you might have that aren't married, and they don't feel like they have that extended family to support them like my mom supported my dad. So later on in life, I moved back to San Antonio to be close to my brother when he made the decision to leave the Army, and when he came back from his second deployment, because it was very difficult. And he's said in many interviews that he's done, that struggle that he's had with his PTSD after combat. And I made that sacrifice in helping him for his sacrifices by moving back to San Antonio and helping him through those hard times. And, I don't know if you see that in many other families, willing to say, I'm going to give up something to help somebody else in my family. And maybe that was because of being raised around the Army and understanding that. Maybe it was just because of the family that we have. But I think it's important for those people who are siblings who are helping veterans to know that we do a lot for our siblings that I think the average person doesn't, and that the biggest thing you can do is just be there for them and listen, and maybe sometimes push them, because my brother and I have had some rocky paths as we've gotten older, as he worked through his PTSD, and he continues to work through it. But to never feel that even though you're a sibling of a veteran, that you're not important in the equation. So it's really, as a whole, for all of us, just, one big service to our country, one big service to each other, to help each other grow and develop. And now we want to help more people with that, because we know finding a job isn't just as easy as fill out a resume and make it happen. I worked in colleges for 12 years, and if getting a college degree was that easy, everybody would have one. So I think it's the same thing about a job. And so as part of having Guide On as our company, having Line One as our community, it really allows us to provide that overall support that is needed for a veteran when they're searching for what they're going to do next, because it's not that simple.
So we're going to talk more about Guide On, which is www.guide-on.com, and the subsidiary line1.org, which is a lot to do with what you're talking about, transition.
Exactly.
And what's fascinating about this is, and I go through this over and over again, is working with members of r4alliance.org. Most of the, 60, 70 organization people I've interviewed, most are led by either veterans or military families or caregivers. So like you said, you lived the life, you know what you went through, and you're out here still serving.
Yes.
Right, you're still serving, helping your fellow veterans. And so, okay. Well, folks, we're going to come back here shortly. Oh, I want to mention also, you mentioned your husband. It's fascinating. I needed a little help with the camera. You go upstairs to another office, and here comes your husband, who happens to have a streaming video company. Right? You want to give the name of your company?
It's stream.me.
What was that?
Stream.me.
Stream.me. We may actually be doing some things together, but it's when you're talking, this is family. So okay, well, we're going to be back here, but we're going to talk about Guide On. We're going to talk about Line One, and but before we go from this episode, if you can just look at the camera and give a shout out to our troops.
Hi, I just want to remind each of you who are out there and serving, thank you so much for all of your service, and thank you to your families and your friends who support you and all that you do.
We think about you every day. Troops are always on our mind, regardless of what the service is. This bond just never leaves. Today, earlier in the year, I turned 66, and you never stop serving. So a big hooah to all you out there.
Okay, folks. Well, thank you very much. As you know, those of you who watch our videos a lot, we always say this. Please share these videos. If you're on Twitter, retweet. We put the post out. Talk with Heroes is our hashtag. Facebook, all the other social media. Word of mouth is what's spreading the information of what's available to our military families, our first responders and their families, and so many people that maybe want to help. They just don't know what to do right now. So we'll be back with more here at Guide On TalkingWithHeroes.com.